I am so excited to have Kayce Hughlett on the Creativity Summit today. Kayce Stevens Hughlett is a tender, a healer, an artist of being alive who believes in everyday magic and that complex issues often call for simple practices. Isn't that the truth? Her 2019 memoir, Soul Stroller, Experiencing the Weight, Whispers, and Wings of the World, won the prestigious Nautilus Book Award in the personal growth category and Chancelleur's Journey Award. She's a co-creator of Soul Strolling, a movement for mindfulness and motion, and creator of the magical Soul Strolling Inspiration Deck. Raised in the heartland of Oklahoma, she now resides in Seattle, Washington, with her family and muse, Aslan the cat. Kayce, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much, Alicia. I'm just delighted to see your face and to be here with you and to have this conversation.
Likewise. I mean, you are such an amazing woman. You are a published author, you're a mom, you have been on this open-hearted journey for a long time, and you share it in your memoir. And I know that creativity has been a really conscious part of your life.
Yes.
For a really long time. Can you just tell us share a little bit about your journey, how you got to become an author and a soul stroller?
Oh, that's such a
no short.
I was going to say that's a bit of a question, but I think I feel like my story and that journey always starts with what came before, which was this sense of I grew up in a very pretty narrow artist, and creativity was not encouraged. It wasn't considered a viable thing to do. It was for those other people, and I also was raised to be very practical, and so I became an accountant. And so which I love that side of my brain, and it's very useful, but that just gives you a little background. And so it's been about 16 years ago, my life had some real challenges, and I had a young son who got involved very early with drugs and alcohol, and none of the traditional things, none of the, just stay within the lines and everything is going to be good. None of those things were working for our family. It was just like, okay, we have to do something new. And really, that's when creativity came into my life, and in an acknowledged way.
Right.
And as I look back, it had always been there. And whether it was how I was preparing meals for my family, whether it was how I was getting dressed in the morning or arranging my furniture, I mean, it had always been there. But I think about 2004 or so, I discovered Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way.
Amazing.
Right? I mean, it's just like the creator's Bible. It is. And it was just magic. And I started to write, and that started to just like really bring my life more into focus. And that's how the writing path started in there. And then there's some other pieces of creativity that have come in along the way.
And you've written more than one book, right?
I have. Yes, this Soul Stroller was my third book.
That's what I thought.
Yes. And the first one I wrote, which was actually written in this time I was talking about, these little pieces, it's called As I Lay Pondering. And it's actually, this is exciting, being re-released by my publisher December 1st of this year.
So everybody needs to pre-order that book.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting to kind of come full circle, because that's really where I started. And so it's just been a really fun journey for me to watch and be a
I
part of.
love that. Yeah. And so I should probably back up and let folks know you and I met in Mexico, of all
Yes.
places, at a
Right.
writing retreat in Tulum. And you and I both got very sick that week.
We did. We did.
And you were so you got sick before I did, and I think you were on the mend by the time I got sick, and you were so kind to share I'll never forget that, just the kindness of someone when you are very ill sharing a piece of ginger is like,
Yeah.
it's like someone has given you a hunk of gold. I mean, it was just the
Mhm.
most special thing.
Oh,
And
sweet.
but what I love about that is, I went there on a creative searching myself, trying to
Mhm.
figure out my path as a writer.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, because I know you do a lot of traveling too. I'm
Mhm.
wondering how travel feeds you, creatively speaking.
Oh gosh, it is. I was just writing about that this morning, because I'm getting ready to go on another big trip, and so I struggle with this idea of how to present it, how to share it, with all the glossy Instagram and with, all these things. It's a struggle. And I realize also, in this time of privilege, I realize that I am very, I'm a, I'm white. I'm from the United States. I have the means to do some travel, and I recognize that there's great privilege in that. But but the thing I recognize the most is it's this where my heart is drawn to go these different places, and I don't seek out the 5-star hotels or the really extravagant, I can't afford to fly business class. I am finding these places that I sit with people who are creating, literally, and sometimes just creating their lives, and travel absolutely feeds that. And I think it's expanded my worldview for sure. And so the creativity, I look at my journals when I'm traveling, and they're filled, not I started doing little paintings in them, and they draw me back to these places. And so I think travel is this piece. It is kind of my next piece of creativity, where I'm just continuing to figure out ways to share what's happening around the world, and focusing on our similarities versus our differences. Because in my experience, and I've been to a lot of different countries and a lot of really wonderful places now, and I just find that at the heart of things, we are all creators. We are all drawn to beauty. We are drawn to that great unknown that we can't always name. And
Yeah.
so travel is absolutely an essential part of my creativity. And my hope is to be able to share that for those people who may not at this point in time be able to physically go those places or do some of those things, but to really just feel that connection that I feel
Yes.
when I'm out there in the
And
world.
I have to say, yes, there is a level of privilege that comes with travel, but especially when you share it with others. I mean, for instance, I follow you on Instagram, and I love what you're up to. And you and your fellow soul stroller, Sharon, were recently traveling together, and seeing your pictures of your watercolors out with your journals, it inspired me here all the way in Greensboro, North Carolina, to pull out my
Yeah.
paints and my
Mhm.
watercolors. And it's so funny if we look at what others are doing from that spirit of abundance and that spirit of connectivity and mindfulness, how much we can glean from one another.
Yes.
And I mean, you probably didn't even know that you were inspiring me to pick
No.
up my paintbrush and
Uh-huh.
paint. And how
Mm.
nourishing that, like, we can inspire each other oceans away from one another
Yes.
in our
Yes.
creative endeavors,
Yeah.
just by sharing a picture.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. yes, because those were the meaningful parts of that trip. I mean, where we would just sit with our paints and our journals and maybe for hours in sipping coffee, and then we'd be like, oh, is it time for, can we have a beer now? And we would just move through the day and have different people interact with us. And and sometimes it was in solitude, just doing it off on our own. And it's really become a beautiful part of just experiencing life, whether it's here in Seattle, whether it's, in the Greek islands, or, somewhere else around the world.
Yeah. And you and I are talking about soul strolling, but can you share what soul strolling is and where it came from?
Mm-hmm. So soul strolling originated from some trips that my friend and co-creator of Soul Strolling, Sharon Richards, we were finding that we actually met in a creativity workshop. And I was like, I really like this woman. And we both found that we had this love for France, for Paris in particular. But we didn't want to do it like, we weren't tour guides, and we weren't going for just the, shopping, drinking part, whatever you envision. And so our first trip, so we created a small business and a small group of people. And the first time we took the group, we called it an urban pilgrimage, and which was quite lovely, but it wasn't quite what our thing was. And we have this favorite quote, and it's by an author and traveler named Phil Cousineau. And he says, it's a tiny quote in this massive book, and it says, "Take your soul for a stroll." And that just deeply resonated with both Sharon and with me. And so we were literally sitting by Puget Sound one day, and we were trying to come up with this name. And all of a sudden we just went, soul strolling. And so it came out of that. And then we've moved from that into this, that it's not just about these trips. It is really about how we do life and how we be in life, and this idea of mindfulness. It's really a mindfulness practice.
Yeah, it's like the Thich Nhat Hanh quote about it's a way of being in the world.
It is a way of being in the world.
Yeah, and I really see the two of you embodying that, and it's so beautiful because it's inspiring.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, what does creativity mean to you?
Well, I think I touched on that a little when I first started to talk about, I think we're all creators, and I think we're all creative. And that's such a great question, but I think creativity is creating something where there wasn't something before, maybe. And it could be a new attitude.
Oh, I love it.
Because I thought I had, people will try to fight you on the fact that you're creative or you're a creator. And I'm not. And I'm like, we create our own days each day. Yes. And again, people fight me on that all the time. They're like, no, I have no choice. Well, and as a coach and as a woman and as a person in the world, that we always have a choice, even if it's how we stop and breathe in a moment. Yes. And so to me, creativity can mean just that pause where there was something like maybe anxious in a moment, and we breathe into it and we soften it. Yes. And there's something different. And we've created that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Kayce, I love that. I mean, so yesterday I was in our moods go through ups and
Oh.
downs. And yesterday was not my finest hour. And I personally I was in a little valley, we'd say. And I knew that I could not carry that into today,
Yeah.
And so when I woke up this morning, I had a bad dream, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I laid there and I made a decision. And so I created my attitude for today, that today was going to be a much better day. And I didn't think about that as an act of creativity, but I'm going to embrace that.
Awesome.
The next time I have a rough day, I need to change my attitude.
Yeah. And sometimes, I know for me, I have to do it over and over and over. It's not a one-time
Once
thing.
and done, right? It's that constant.
And so I love that you mentioned those peaks and those valleys, and sometimes for me, it's like, I don't want to create anything better. I just need to be in whatever that is.
Yes.
But there are those moments, like you said, it's like, I don't want to carry this into this next day. So I'm going to create something different. And
so powerful. So do you have creative rituals or creative processes that ground you, that bring you into the moment? Or do you have rituals that bring you to creativity?
Ooh, I'd say I probably have both. And they change and they shift. And I say I have this, like a toolbox. And sometimes writing is the thing that will kind of get me grounded. And as I continue with that, sometimes that's where creativity will blossom out of that. Sometimes I can't make myself do it. And so it might be a simple act of lighting a candle, taking a breath, ringing a chime, lighting incense, and stepping out into my garden, feeling the earth underneath my feet. I can often feel like something needs to happen. And sometimes I can, pick up my paintbrush or sit down and open up a document and just go for it. And the creativity is ready to be there. But most often I feel like I'm each day laying the groundwork for the day, for creating the day.
Yes.
For creating the day. And that might include creativity. I love images. Collage was one of my first loves, along with writing. And I love it because it's so simple, that it's, you take other people's images and a glue stick, and you can tear it. You don't even have to have scissors, and you can, create something that way. And so it's this practice of deep listening, kind of following the inspiration. And sometimes, sometimes it is by seeing someone else's Instagram post, reading a quote, doing and recognizing too when that's an avoidance, right?
When that's keeping you from the creative process instead of being engaged in the creative process.
Exactly.
So along those lines of being stuck, creatively speaking, when you feel stuck, or speaking to our wider audience, if they're feeling stuck, what are your top 3 favorite things to do to get your creative juices flowing?
Right. Number 1 is probably doing something totally different, changing direction. If I've been sitting at my computer or my art table or whatever, and nothing is happening, I get up and I go take a walk. If I can't go outside, I get up and I go make a cup of tea. So actually physically moving, and along the line of physically moving, I don't do this as much as I like to, but I dance.
Yes.
Putting on music and just, feeling the music, dancing and shift. And so you're physically moving things. And for me, that often, it gets the creative juices flowing, or two, it lets go of the ideas that I should be creating something right now and lets me off the hook to go do something else. Because sometimes it's just not my time to create.
Yeah.
And then number three, which is often number one, is that sense of just quieting, taking some breaths, maybe setting a timer to journal for 5 minutes, or to breathe for 5 minutes, or whatever feels like where I'm pushing. Like if I'm really stuck with writing, sometimes it's like, okay, write for 10 minutes and then see what happens. And usually that breaks the block.
I love
that. And sometimes it's just like, nope, not happening today. So then I go take the walk and then
just be done for the day.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Such great tips.
Yeah.
How does your creative practice help you access your inner wise woman?
Gosh, I think they're one and the same.
Oh, yeah, that's like, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Powerful work, right?
It's powerful work.
Kayce, what else would you like to share about creativity? Other thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts are just, I was reading this morning, I was in my journaling and my processing, and I was reading about this idea of just like, I'm a Virgo, which often is seen just as very perfectionistic and just, that kind of piece. But what I'm embracing more as I get older is this idea of the earth mother, like, so this grounding on earth, and the nurturing side. And so I've been playing with that. And so I find, and this is back to your question, it's just like, I think we're all creators, as we've said, and to find what that is, and to not give up, and to let go of those voices that say you're not creative, or this isn't good enough, or those kinds of things, and just to continue to practice those places, because there's just this amazing, I think creativity is just these doors that just keep opening and opening and opening. And I mean, I would say I'm not a painter, but I'm painting. So I guess I'm a painter.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I'm going to go sell it. It doesn't mean it's for anybody's consumption but mine. But I think just for we as creators, we as women, we as, citizens of the world, is to find the places where creativity heal us and ground us, because as we heal and ground ourselves, we're healing and we're doing that for the world.
Yes.
We're doing that for other people. And so I think maybe that's the message, is to see this as a collective act. That if you can't create for yourself, think about that you're creating something for those that come after you, or maybe your friend you're having coffee with, or maybe the person on the other side of the world who sees that you've, stepped out and created something.
Yes.
But this collective act, and that's for me, is this nurturer, this tender. I want that for everybody, and I didn't see creativity as that gift until, much later. And, I wasn't seeing it as a child, or even in my 20s or my 30s. So to just embrace it. When you feel that spark and that tug, just whatever it is, pick up a pencil, pick up a paintbrush, do a little dance, whatever, put on some wild lipstick and earrings, or, whatever it feels like to be creative, and just do those small steps, and
baby steps to creativity.
Baby steps to creativity. Absolutely.
So Kayce, thank you so much. And I think you have a gift for us. Do you want to tell everyone what it is?
I do. So part of soul strolling, and I don't have any samples here with me, but I have created, it's called the Soul Strolling Inspiration Deck. Oh, this is also one of my tips that I use to get me unstuck, which, I created it and here I've forgotten it. But so I have a deck of 60 cards that has different words of inspiration and intention setting and just mindfulness. And so what I've done is I have 8 selected cards that I am offering for anyone who signs up on for my newsletter.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we will put a link to your newsletter underneath. And Kayce, thank you so much for being a part of this summit.
Thank
we really
you.
appreciate you.
Thanks so much, Alicia. This is such great work. Thank you for doing it.